Every year, well, not this one, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3, takes place as game companies from across the industry take a few days to excite gamers all around the globe, hosting presentations and announcing new games, giving the public hands-on opportunities, and more occur during the annual conference as people learn what to expect in the coming months. In particular, Nintendo is often lauded for the hype that it delivers during their own presentations, which was no exception during last year's E3 conference. Among the highlights being Tekken's Kazuya joining Smash and Metroid Dread, the ending section with all the Zelda news was the most exciting part of the broadcast. Given that it was the series' 35th anniversary that year, it makes sense there would be some showcase of announcements for the green-capped hero, and the stuff shown accounted for just that. Updates on Hyrule Warriors DLC, the following month's Skyward Sword HD, and the sequel to Breath of the Wild were hype enough on their own, especially for Zelda fans. However, the one that I found the most surprising was the Zelda Game Watch. A few months prior to the Direct, I made a video review on the Mario Game & Watch in which I gave it a positive review and showed a level of enthusiasm for a potential Zelda one, but to see it actually revealed wasn't something I expected. But from the get-go, it seemed like a better deal than the Mario one, with more games and features packed in with the same quality, all at the same exact price with no time limit for purchase. Now of course I was pretty intrigued from the beginning, but the emphasis on more games and features than the previous model gave me enough incentive to actually buy the damn thing, and I've spent a fair bit of time on it since then. Now it's been a while since the Zelda Game & Watch has launched, so the question posed is it worth it? Especially in conjunction with the Mario Game & Watch? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. My name is dehparticles, and in today's video, I'll be giving my thoughts on the Zelda Game & Watch unit. Taking a look at the box, the unit carries most of the neat details and references to the Zelda series just like the Mario one did respectively, chief of which being the sleeve with the sprites. And underneath is the detailing of the Game & Watch aspects, so it's cool to see this consistency in design. When opening the box, the contents of the package are also fairly similar as well. Instruction manual, USB-C charger, and the unit itself. But what's most notable is the design of the plastic that everything sits in, which also acts as a stand for the Game & Watch to be used as a clock. But onto the actual unit itself. The build quality is just as impressive as before, with sleek gold metal popping out a small LCD screen and the same buttons, but this time with the added select and start over the A and B buttons. The sides of the unit include a speaker, a charging port, and the power button. But one thing to note is that the back also includes this engraving of the Triforce from the series, a little reference from the manufacturers. Turning it on, you get a little visual of Link protruding over a view of a cliff, and then it begins. Right away, you're led to the watch portion of the Zelda Game & Watch. I'll leave most of the secrets to anyone who's interested in purchasing, but from my perspective, you can still make the numbers flash by pressing both A and B, and you can even control Link in the map. And since you now have the option to turn auto sleep off, the Game & Watch works well as a clock without even needing to be charged. So overall, the first impressions I had when turning on the unit are pretty great, but it wouldn't be complete without the most important part, the games. And we have quite a few to talk about now, so let's see our options. The first game on our list is the original Legend of Zelda, the one that started it all, and one that is fairly simple to get into. You start off the game by getting your sword, and that's it. From there you go around the map completing dungeons and collecting pieces of the Triforce in order to save Princess Zelda from the clutches of Ganon. The map of the game is really expansive, allowing for optimal amounts of exploration as you go around and find hidden secrets and dungeons. However, the game itself gives little indication as to your first step of direction or where to go, and as a result, during my playthrough, I had no idea where to start after progressing further into the game, and I essentially couldn't get around without using a map. And with limited resources, I found myself dying quite a bit from nearby enemy damage. But after playing for some time, I eventually got used to it and started having fun with the game. Other than that, I don't really feel there's much else I can say. It's the first Zelda. If you have the right mindset to play it, then it's sure to be a worthwhile experience packed with the charm that made it so memorable, and it's long enough that you'll spend at least a good hour or two of playtime. Next on the list is Zelda II. Aside from the fact that Zelda is in danger and you must save her in the Triforce, this game is very different than Zelda 1. Zelda 2 opts for side-scrolling gameplay as opposed to the top-down perspective in the first game, which is why you may see more combat than beforehand. In addition, the game also includes RPG elements that force you to be watchful of your stats, especially in a map as big as the one in the game. Because of these changes, the level of difficulty seems to be kicked up a notch as I notice myself dying more often, and I can tell that this is only going to be just as frequent from here on out. And with, again, no indication of where to go without using some sort of guide and reference, Zelda 2 is as dated, if not more, than Zelda 1. But, just like with Zelda 1, if you take the time to play it out and feel the game for yourself, it ends out a lot more fun than at first glance, which culminated into my overall experience playing. So Zelda 2 may not be the most amusing game available, but with the right mindset, it's a game that contributes more playtime if you're looking for it. The final game among the selection of classic Zelda titles is the original Game Boy version of Link's Awakening. The game starts off with a different story than the previous two games as Link crashes his boat on an island due to the effects of a storm at sea, and after meeting a girl on the island he crashes on, he retrieves his sword and begins an adventure in order to find a way out of the island. Out of all the games that were offered, this one was probably my personal favorite, likely due to it having influence from the Super Nintendo's A Link to the Past. The game returns to the standard top-down perspective of the original Zelda while expanding the length of the gameplay present, which is something I really liked about it as it made the game feel more expansive than the NES releases. In addition, the soundtrack in combination with the great graphics fit at home on the Game & Watch and made me feel relaxed while playing. The settings of the game even give you the option to change the size of the screen, which brought back vague memories of the 3DS Virtual Console that I didn't even know I had. Although I am curious why they didn't opt for the advanced DX version of the game, especially since it's the most common version of it out there, but I digress. Link's Awakening is probably the best Zelda game you'll find on the Game & Watch, and for anyone who purchases it, it's simply a must-play. Of course, a Game & Watch needs an actual Game & Watch game, and this time Nintendo chose to remake the title Vermin for this release. In Vermin, you control Link as he moves left to right in a whack-a-mole style game, preventing the enemies from reaching ground level. The game is divided into two modes, with A being the standard and B providing more of a challenge. Although I had fun playing this as a quick breather from the main attractions, it's just about as basic as Ball was on the Mario unit, so you may not find yourself spending too much time on it. And frankly, I'm confused as to why they chose this specific game. With so many other options, including a whole Zelda title that would have fit here perfectly, there's just an aching feeling of missed potential. But for what's offered, Vermin isn't a bad game at all, and if you want a break from Zelda, it's a neat add-on to the experience. Lastly, while not specifically a game on its own, the Zelda Game & Watch also includes a playable timer. When selecting the timer, you can set up to 10 minutes of time to fight enemies from Zelda 2. The first few waves are pretty manageable, but over time the difficulty progressively increases and you begin to battle against stronger enemies. This mode is actually pretty hard, on account of the Zelda 2 enemies in combat that I couldn't get past 40 total enemies when I played this mode. And overall, I personally didn't find that much enjoyment in it. I don't feel like there's much incentive to go back and play this as opposed to the other games available. But if you want to play something that's almost but not quite Zelda, the playable timer could be up your alley. So you essentially have 5 different games to choose from, a level of content that's pretty impressive on its own. But with a long-lasting battery life of 8 hours, you can play through most of these games even while you're out and about, which makes the Zelda Game & Watch a portable venture worth checking out if you don't find a lot of free time. Now, in order to properly review the Zelda Game & Watch, it's important to address its pros and cons, so first I'm going to go over some pros. Firstly is the graphics. Although the Game & Watch is small enough so that details aren't really as noticeable, the size actually works in favor of the games. Particularly, with such a small screen, the pixelated look of the older titles doesn't look as drab compared to if you were playing it on Virtual Console, while also retaining the retro factor and not making anything too flashy. Besides that, there isn't really too much you can talk about with the graphics since the pixelated looks get the job done as far as each game and feature, but the look of the outside model is also constructed very well. As mentioned earlier, it's structured in similar design to the Mario Game & Watch plus additional features, and using something that looks cool makes playing it simultaneously as incentivizing. In tandem with this, the audio quality is also surprisingly fair. It's actually louder than I expected at high volumes, even when covering the speaker with my finger, so you should have no trouble hearing everything. even the annoying ticking sound of the clock. Yeah, I bet your house clock can't do that, huh? As shown throughout the video, the level of content present in the Zelda Game & Watch oversteps the Mario one by a slight amount, but with the number of Zelda games present, there's enough enjoyment to be had with each individual game. And alongside the inclusion of these games, you also have the option to play them in different languages, which have some slight variations in their presentation and offer a neat little addition to the unit. And that's not even taking into account everything else that comes included. So just like before with the Mario Game & Watch, there's many surprises to discover that are tucked away in the unit and should prove enjoyable for players. Now, despite all the relative positives of the Zelda Game & Watch, it still comes with a fair amount of downsides, which I'll detail now. Firstly, although marketing will show the unit in crisp detail, it's actually a lot smaller than made out to be, meaning cramps are almost certainly inevitable. This wasn't as much of an issue on the Mario Game & Watch since the button saw minimal use besides basic actions. But in Zelda, you're moving in all sorts of directions regardless of what game you play. So if you can fit the thing into the palm of your hand, you may feel some tension in your thumbs when playing. But the main elephant in the room is that this yet again serves as a collector's item as opposed to something you can use to play games for long periods. This time around, the same price tag of $50 is a lot more justifiable, but you still have the potential to play these games on systems such as the Switch, and even the 3DS and Wii U. Two systems that are having their eShops closed down by next year. So considering you already have these systems and don't really care about the smaller offerings of Nintendo, you'd probably want to stick with something cheap. In conclusion, the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch is a fun way of paying homage to one of Nintendo's most celebrated franchises. It has many different ways to experience some of the first that the series has to offer, while simultaneously leaving the player with enough to look forward and go back to. And because this is Nintendo's second commemorative release of this style, it avoids a majority of the problems that their previous release had, so there's less worry of owning a potentially underwhelming product. Even if the whole premise is more collector-esque than anything, the Zelda Game & Watch still serves as a neat buy that can serve as inspiration for future products and anniversary celebrations. I mean, hey, maybe they'll make another one for Kirby's anniversary. Or not. I mean, I really wouldn't mind, because honestly, I can't record these things anymore, man. Like, my spine is basically a silly straw now. So to conclude, if you have reason to buy the Zelda Game & Watch, whether it's for yourself or for a friend, there's plenty of Zelda to go around and is definitely an experience you won't want to miss out on. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning back into my videos. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I want to know from you guys. Did you purchase the Zelda Game & Watch? Leave a comment down below and let me know if so, and what your thoughts are on it. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And to follow up on video updates, consider hitting the notification bell or checking out my Twitter. My previous video on Professor Layton and the Curious Village is also on screen and in the description, so please be sure to check that out as well. Otherwise, that's it from me. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.